I still remember the exact moment she said it. Calm, polite, almost rehearsed, yet sharp enough to pierce right through me. "This year we'll do Christmas at my mom's, Margaret. You can stay home and relax. Relax." The word hung in the air like a bell I couldn't silence, echoing in the corners of my mind. A gentle, polite suggestion, but one that felt like a verdict. Like an invisible hand pushing me aside, gently but firmly, out of the center of my own family. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I smiled politely, the kind of smile mothers learn to wear over decades, a smile that says, "Everything is fine, even when it is not. Of course, Claire. Enjoy yourselves." "I'll be fine." She never heard the scream beneath it. She never would. The house felt colder that day. The kitchen smelled faintly of cinnamon and pine, but the scent no longer comforted me. It mocked me with memories of laughter, warmth, and family chaos that had vanished. I poured myself a cup of tea, watching the steam curl into the air like ghostly reminders of Christmases past. I looked at the photograph of Adam as a little boy. Frosting smeared across his nose, gingerbread in hand, his laughter ringing through the house. And now, silence. A bitter laugh escaped me. This was the moment I realized I was no longer at the center. Quietly, almost invisibly, I had been moved to the sidelines. I turned on the television, letting the flickering images of holiday specials fill the room. Families hugging beside roaring fires, children running through snow-covered streets, grandparents smiling as little hands tugged at their coats. I turned off the sound. I couldn't bear the noise. But I couldn't look away either. Each smiling face pressed the reality closer. The place I had always belonged no longer had room for me. Adam called the next morning. My voice remained calm, neutral, even as my chest ached. "Mom, you're not upset, are you? You know how Claire's mom loves hosting." I smiled politely. "Of course not. Enjoy yourselves." "I'll be fine. I'm glad," Adam replied. And that was it. The conversation ended. My son reassured himself that I would not complain, that I would not disrupt their perfect holiday. I stared at the phone long after he hung up, feeling the hollow ache of love given reluctantly, the sting of being left behind. The snow began falling outside, soft and silent. I moved to the old chest by the window and lifted the lid, revealing our travel suitcase, faded, worn, leather softened by decades of touch. I traced the seams, remembering Robert's voice. "You spend your whole life making others happy, Maggie. One day, promise me you'll see the world for yourself." I had promised, and I had forgotten. That night, sitting by the window, watching the snow drift past the panes, something inside me shifted. The grief, the loneliness, the sense that my life had become a series of empty days, no longer had the power to define me. I realized that if I didn't move, I would wither. I opened my laptop, fingers trembling, and typed "Christmas vacations for seniors." Dozens of images filled the screen. Snow-draped villages, twinkling markets, cobblestone streets bathed in golden lights, smiling travelers clutching mugs of steaming cocoa. I scrolled, captivated until I saw it. A winter tour through Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. Departure in 3 days. It was absurd, impulsive, unplanned, perfect. I clicked book now. With that single, deliberate action, I gave myself the first real gift I had denied myself in decades: freedom. The next morning, I packed carefully. Sweaters, scarves, a few mementos. My suitcase smelled faintly of cedar from the cedar balls Robert had tucked inside years ago. I added my favorite scarf, the one Adam had bought me last Christmas. I brewed tea for the last time before leaving my quiet house, letting the warmth seep through me. I walked slowly through the living room, looking at the tree, the empty stockings, the chair where I would have sat. Whispering softly, "This year you will remember me." Even if they don't, memories flooded me as I packed. The Christmases when Adam and I had baked together, his little hands smearing flour across the table and his laughter filling the air. The years Robert and I spent decorating the tree, singing carols, holding each other close as the snow fell outside. How many times had I set aside my own desires to make everyone else happy? Too many. I counted the silent sacrifices in my mind as if tallying invisible scars. I paused to touch a photograph of Robert on the mantel, his eyes twinkling as he held our wedding bouquet. The same bouquet I had pressed into the pages of my memory all these years. "I'm finally going," I whispered. For both of us. By the time I reached the airport, the hum of energy surrounded me. Families hugging tightly, children squealing with delight, announcements echoing across polished floors. My heart raced, not from fear but exhilaration. For the first time in years, I was traveling alone, and the sensation was electrifying. I found my seat and noticed a man in his late 60s smiling warmly at me. "Headed home or heading out?" he asked. "Out. For once," I said softly. "Good answer," he replied, smiling. As the plane lifted, the city lights fading beneath clouds, a weight lifted from my chest. Maybe grief had anchored me too long. Maybe routine had caged me quietly. Whatever it had been, it no longer could. I leaned back, letting the hum of the engines lull me into a fragile peace. Outside, snow blurred into darkness. Inside, a spark had been lit. I thought of Robert, of Adam, of all the Christmases I had sacrificed for others. And for the first time in years, I made a promise to myself. This Christmas, I would not stay home. This Christmas, I would be seen. As the hours passed on the flight, I remembered the first Christmas Adam was born, the night we stayed up listening to his tiny heartbeat, feeling the warmth of life that had given my own life new purpose. I remembered the holidays when Claire had joined us, her laughter filling the space with light. And now, the silence they had left was a space I realized I could fill with my own joy. I closed my eyes, letting the plane rock gently beneath me. The snow continued to fall, blanketing the world below. And inside, a warmth began to spread, a spark of life, a quiet joy. This Christmas, I was not going to wait to be chosen. I would choose myself. And as the lights of the city disappeared beneath the clouds, I whispered softly into the hum of the engines. This year, I am going to be found. The airport was alive with energy, a living, breathing organism of motion, voices, and scattered laughter. Children tugged at their parents' hands, squealing in delight, while travelers hustled with luggage, announcements echoing faintly over the din. I stood there for a moment, holding my suitcase handle, feeling a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. I had left the quiet of my little blue house, left the half-decorated tree, the empty stockings, and the weight of silence behind. For the first time in years, I was stepping into a world that belonged solely to me. I took a deep breath and walked toward my gate, each step lighter than the last. The air smelled of coffee and pretzels, the chatter of families blending with the metallic hum of airplanes. I noticed travelers of all ages, young couples entwined in the thrill of vacation, elderly men and women holding hands tightly, perhaps for comfort or habit, and children wide-eyed with the promise of adventure. When I found my seat, a man in his late 60s smiled warmly from the window seat beside mine. He had kind eyes, a calm presence, and a subtle air of reassurance that made the space feel instantly safer. "Headed home or heading out?" he asked. "Out," I said softly. "For once, truly out." He chuckled, the kind of low, gentle sound that made silence feel comfortable. "Good answer. That's how it should be at our age, don't you think? Finally doing the things we've always postponed." I smiled, feeling a flutter of warmth in my chest. Maybe it was the excitement of travel, or perhaps the relief of sharing this first moment with someone who seemed to understand without explanation. His name was Jonathan Reed, a retired architect from Seattle, widowed like me, navigating the delicate balance of grief and hope. We began talking cautiously at first, our voices soft, tentative. But soon, the conversation flowed naturally. Memories, losses, second chances. As the plane lifted off, leaving the city lights behind, I felt the tightness in my chest loosen. The world below blurred into a canvas of shimmering lights, and a strange exhilaration bubbled within me. For so long, grief had kept me grounded. Routine had caged me quietly, Now, in the gentle rocking of the plane, I was free. Our group was small, about 20 travelers, mostly retirees seeking adventure instead of routine. Each morning began with the gentle hush of falling snow, the distant tinkle of bells, and the aroma of roasted almonds wafting from nearby Christmas markets. The world we stepped into was timeless, almost magical, yet real. Streets lined with centuries-old buildings, windows twinkling with festive lights, cobblestones glistening with frost. I laughed, perhaps for the first time in months, as Jonathan recounted a story from his youth, how he had tried to build a treehouse for his children and ended up entangled in rope and pine needles. I shared my own memories of baking with Adam as a child, flour smeared across the counters and his tiny hands clumsy but determined. Laughter became the bridge between past and present, two strangers finding companionship in shared stories of love, loss, and rediscovery. One morning, as we wandered through the narrow streets of Munich, the smell of freshly baked pretzels mixed with the crisp winter air, choirs sang softly in the distance, their voices echoing off the cathedral walls, carrying warmth and serenity. Jonathan pointed out a tiny cafe tucked into a corner, its windows frosted over, steam rising from mugs of cocoa inside. We stepped in, letting the world slow down, taking our seats by the window. Life's strange, isn't it? He mused, stirring his drink. We spend decades thinking we have all the time in the world, and then we realize how fleeting it really is. I looked at him, feeling a quiet resonance with his words. Maybe that's why we're here, I said. To remind ourselves that we're still allowed to feel joy, even now. He smiled, a gentle warmth in his eyes. Exactly. To rediscover the little worlds we thought we'd lost. Days passed in a rhythm of wonder. I explored snow-covered streets, wandered through markets, sipped mulled wine while gazing at twinkling lights, and allowed myself to simply be present. Every corner of Europe felt like a revelation, a reminder that life still held beauty, even after loss and disappointment. One evening in Salzburg, after dinner with the group, Jonathan raised his glass toward me. To rediscovering joy, he said, his voice steady, yet soft, and to finally giving ourselves permission to live, I replied. We clinked glasses, laughter spilling between us, the kind of laughter unburdened by expectation or history. Outside, snow fell softly, the kind that makes the world feel forgiven. In that moment, I realized something profound. I was not alone. I had a companion, someone who saw me, who understood the quiet resilience that had carried me this far. The mornings began to feel different. I woke early, the sunrise reflecting off frosted rooftops, painting the streets with soft golden light. My phone buzzed with messages from home. Adam checking in, asking if I was all right, telling me the kids missed me. I smiled faintly, replying simply with a photo of the cathedral and the caption, "Merry Christmas from Salzburg." Having a wonderful time. The joy I felt was quiet, yet profound. It wasn't the kind that needed recognition, nor was it fleeting. It was the kind that settles into your bones, the kind that whispers in your heart, reminding you that you are alive, that you matter, that the world still holds magic. In Vienna, Jonathan and I took a photograph beneath the market lights, laughing freely, unburdened. I posted it online with a simple caption. Sometimes the best company is found when you stop waiting for an invitation. An hour later, the notifications began to pour in. Friends from home. You look radiant. Good for you, Margaret. And then, my family. Messages from Adam and Claire, surprised, confused, perhaps even a touch guilty. But I smiled. For years, I had waited for them to see me. This time, I didn't need validation. I was already seen, by myself, and that was enough. Jonathan taught me how to use the camera on my phone properly. I taught him how to enjoy strudel without guilt. Together, we wandered through galleries, sat in cozy cafes, and watched the Danube shimmer under lantern light. It wasn't romance in the conventional sense, but a deeper, purer connection, mutual respect, shared healing and quiet companionship. One evening, as we walked along the river, he said softly, You remind me of my wife in one way. She never stopped believing in beauty, even when life got hard. I smiled, tears threatening to spill. Maybe we never stop. We just forget where to look. By the time the trip neared its end, I felt a shift within me, a rebirth of sorts. I had stepped out of my own shadow, chosen myself over expectation, and discovered that joy could be reclaimed, even after years of absence. Evenings in Vienna carried a quiet magic. The city seemed to breathe around me, the soft glow of lanterns reflecting on cobblestones dusted with snow, music drifting gently from cafes and concert halls, and the aroma of roasted chestnuts filling the streets. Jonathan and I wandered through the markets, laughing quietly, letting ourselves be fully present in a world untouched by worry or obligation. That night, we took a photograph together beneath a canopy of twinkling lights, our faces illuminated by the soft glow, laughter spilling between us in a way that felt unrestrained and genuine. I held my phone carefully, framing the shot just so, capturing not just an image, but a feeling, the first spark of joy in months that was entirely mine. Later, back in my hotel room, I uploaded the photograph. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, heart racing with a mixture of anticipation and defiance. I typed a simple caption. Sometimes the best company is found when you stop waiting for an invitation. And I pressed post. At first, nothing happened. Just the soft hum of the hotel heating system, the distant chatter of other guests, the quiet rhythm of snow falling outside my window. Then slowly notifications began to appear. One by one, pings echoed softly from my phone, like small taps on the door of my life. Friends from home. You look radiant, Margaret. Good for you. This is so wonderful to see. Finally, some joy that's just for you. Their words warmed me in a way that nothing else had in years. And then, my family chat, Adam. Mom? Where are you? Who is that man? Claire. You didn't tell us you were traveling? Wow, you look different. I smiled faintly, placing the phone down for a moment to simply breathe. For years, I had waited for them to see me. For years, I had shaped myself around their expectations, silenced my desires, and placed my own joy at the bottom of a long list. And now, I was finally visible. Not because I had sought attention, but because I had chosen to live. Jonathan noticed the subtle shift in me, the quiet pride in my expression. You look happy, he said softly. I nodded, a small smile tugging at my lips. I am. For the first time in a long while, I really am. Over the next days, Vienna unfolded like a storybook. We strolled along the river, watching lanterns float gently on the water. I tried strudel for the first time in years, savoring every bite, feeling no guilt, only delight. Jonathan shared tales of his architecture projects, of buildings that had long since been forgotten, yet still held memories. I shared stories of Adam as a child, of Christmas mornings filled with flour, laughter, and little hands wrapped around tiny mugs of cocoa. It wasn't romance, at least not in the conventional sense. It was companionship, a deep recognition of another soul who had walked through loss and emerged with quiet dignity. It was mutual healing, a shared understanding that life could still offer joy, even after disappointment, even after grief, even after being overlooked for years. One evening, we found ourselves at a small outdoor concert. The music was soft, classical, blending seamlessly with the crisp night air. Couples danced quietly, children giggled at the edges, and the smell of roasted almonds lingered, mingling with the scent of snow. I watched Jonathan's profile in the golden lamplight, the lines of age and experience etched into his face, and I felt a profound sense of gratitude. Not for him, not for anyone else, but for myself. I had made it here. I had chosen myself. And for once, I didn't need permission. The next morning, a quiet snow fell over Vienna. I woke early, sunlight reflecting off rooftops and streets dusted with frost. I snapped a photo from my hotel window, the first rays of the day illuminating the spires of distant cathedrals. I sent it to Adam and Claire with a simple message. Merry Christmas from Vienna. Having a wonderful time. Their responses came slowly at first, then in a flood of surprise and concern. But I didn't wait for validation. I was already seen, already alive in a way that mattered. Jonathan smiled at my growing ease, the lightness in my steps. "You're glowing," he said, gentle, observant. "I think," I said quietly, "I've remembered who I am. Not who I was told to be, but who I am." Over the following days, we explored the hidden corners of the city, art galleries filled with centuries of beauty, quiet cafes where the aroma of coffee mingled with freshly baked pastries, and streets where snow fell silently, covering the city in a blanket of serenity. Each moment was a reminder. Life still had room for wonder, for laughter, for discovery. We shared long conversations over hot chocolate, speaking of past loves and lost dreams, of regrets and the small victories that had kept us going. He taught me how to notice the details in the world, the way sunlight reflected off frost-covered windows, the sound of music drifting from an open cafe door. I shared with him the simple joy of noticing the small miracles in everyday life, the way the snow clung to rooftops, the warmth of a stranger's smile, the scent of pine carried on the winter air. One night, as we walked along the river, Jonathan said softly, "You remind me of my wife in one way. She never stopped believing in beauty, even when life got hard." I felt a lump in my throat, tears threatening to spill. "Maybe we never stop," I whispered. "We just forget where to look." I realized then that happiness isn't something that arrives when others allow it. It is something we find within ourselves, often quietly, in moments of courage and defiance. By the time our trip began to draw to a close, I was a different woman. I had stepped out of the shadows of expectation, reclaimed my own life, and discovered that joy could be found, even after years of waiting. I had been overlooked, underestimated, even sidelined. But in this small corner of the world, I had remembered myself, and when I finally looked at that photograph, the one I had posted online beneath the twinkling lights, I understood something profound. The best kind of attention, the truest kind of recognition comes not from others, but from the quiet acknowledgement of your own heart. For the first time in decades, I felt seen. Not for the mother I had been, not for the grandmother I had become, not for the wife I had lost, but for me. For Margaret Turner, who had finally remembered how to laugh, to wander, to live. And in that moment, beneath the soft glow of Vienna's winter lights, I knew something essential. This journey was only the beginning. 2 days later, as the sun rose over Vienna, casting soft golden light over the rooftops and streets dusted with snow, my phone buzzed. I picked it up, seeing Adam's name flash across the screen. My heart tightened for just a moment. The same son who had told me to stay home. The same son whose absence had weighed on me for weeks. "Mom?" His voice was tentative, a mix of relief and apprehension. "Why didn't you tell us you were traveling? We were worried." I took a deep breath, steadying myself. I wanted to speak gently, to let him know there was no blame, no anger, only understanding. "I didn't want to be a burden," I said softly. "Besides, you told me to stay home." There was a pause. I could almost hear the weight of his realization on the other end of the line. I'm sorry, Mom. We shouldn't have," he whispered, his voice thick with regret. "It's all right," I replied calmly, letting the warmth of my own peace shine through my words. Sometimes distance shows us what closeness really means. He went silent for a moment, and then, quietly, "Hannah feels awful." "She didn't understand." "I know," I said, my voice gentle, soft as the snow outside the window where I was staying. "I don't need apologies. I just needed to remember who I am." The conversation lingered in the quiet of the morning. Neither of us said much after that. Words weren't necessary. The silence between us was filled with understanding, with the acknowledgement that I had grown, that I had chosen myself, and that sometimes life teaches lessons in the absence of people, not just in their presence. I hung up the phone and sat quietly for a while, letting the weight of freedom settle over me. The city outside seemed brighter somehow, not because the sun was shining more, but because I was finally seeing it through my own eyes, free from the shadows of expectation. Later that day, I wandered through Vienna's Christmas market alone, savoring the smell of roasted almonds, the soft laughter of children, the music drifting from a nearby stage. Jonathan walked beside me, not speaking much, letting me have these moments. He had learned early on not to fill the silence, but to let it hold its own meaning. We stopped at a small stall selling handcrafted ornaments. I picked up a delicate glass globe, the tiny scene inside twinkling with painted snow and miniature houses. I held it in my hands, feeling the fragile beauty of it, and realized it mirrored my own journey. Delicate, intricate, yet resilient. "You've changed," Jonathan said softly. His eyes meeting mine. I smiled, a quiet, steady smile. "No," I said, turning the globe in my hands. "I've remembered." That night, as snow fell softly over the city, I sat in my hotel room and reflected. For so many years, I had defined myself by the roles I played: mother, wife, grandmother. But in being sidelined, in being told to stay home, I was forced to see something I had neglected: Margaret Turner, the woman who had dreams, who had courage, who had yet to experience the world for herself. I looked at Jonathan, reading in his expression a reflection of my own awakening. He had found companionship, yes, but more importantly, he had found someone willing to be fully present, to reclaim life with quiet determination. We shared a quiet dinner that evening, sitting near a window overlooking the snow-covered street. Lights from the market reflected in the glass, creating a halo around us. Conversation drifted from trivialities to reflections, laughter punctuated by moments of shared understanding. Every word felt intentional, every silence filled with meaning. Later, I sent another photo home, this time capturing the view from the hotel balcony, rooftops lined with snow, spires of distant churches glowing in the evening light. I added a caption: "Vienna is magical. Thinking of you all." Responses trickled in, slow at first, hesitant, but I didn't need them to validate my experience. This journey wasn't about proving myself. It was about reclaiming my life, embracing the joy that had always been within reach, waiting quietly for me to notice. Jonathan and I continued exploring the city for the next few days, letting ourselves be drawn into quiet corners, small cafes, and hidden galleries. Every experience was a reminder that life, at any age, could be full of wonder. Every conversation, every shared laugh, every silent moment together reinforced a simple truth. Happiness isn't something given by others. It is something we claim for ourselves. When I finally called Adam again, it was with a sense of calm, of completeness. He answered quickly, his voice now lighter, tinged with relief. "Mom, we didn't realize." "I'm sorry." "It's all right," I said, my tone steady, warm. Sometimes it takes being apart to understand how close we really are. I could hear his inhalation, the soft exhale of a man realizing the depth of a mother's love, not in her presence alone, but in her courage to step into life on her own terms. I spent that night looking out the window at the snow-covered city. The streets were quiet, the market lights dimmed for the evening, and the world seemed to breathe with a soft, gentle rhythm. I felt a sense of completeness, of reconciliation, not with anyone else, but with myself. For the first time, I understood something I had long forgotten. Love is powerful, but self-respect and joy are transformative. And in reclaiming those, we don't just heal ourselves. We allow others to see us fully, to respect us, to remember us. By the time our flight home approached, I knew I was returning not as the woman who had been told to stay home, but as someone reborn. Someone who had walked through snow-covered streets in foreign lands, who had laughed freely, who had allowed herself to be seen and to see herself. And in that moment, I realized that sometimes the journey away from home is the journey back to your own heart. The plane touched down quietly, the engines winding down, and for the first time in weeks, I felt the familiar stir of home. The little blue house on the edge of Denver waited for me, its pale walls dusted in snow, the garden frozen yet serene under winter's soft blanket. But it didn't feel the same. The house hadn't changed. The memories were intact. The furniture exactly where it had always been. Yet I returned transformed, carrying a sense of quiet strength and newfound freedom. I stepped inside, placing my suitcase carefully by the door. The familiar scent of pine and cinnamon greeted me, but it no longer held the sting of absence. Instead, it was a reminder of all the Christmases I had lived, loved, and cherished, and of the joy that awaited when I allowed myself to step fully into my own life. Slowly, I unpacked, laying out souvenirs from the trip, a delicate snow globe from Vienna, a hand-carved angel from Munich, and a small ceramic ornament from Salzburg. Each piece carried a story, a memory, a fragment of a world I had chosen to embrace. And in the corner of my room, I placed a framed photograph of Jonathan and me laughing beneath falling snow, our faces illuminated by soft lights, capturing a moment of pure, unburdened joy. Days passed, and then a card arrived. A simple envelope thick with the warmth of home. Inside, a photograph of my grandchildren, their cheeks rosy, eyes sparkling, standing beside the Christmas tree they had decorated in my absence. Alongside it, a note. "We missed you, Mom. We're sorry. Come soon." The kids can't stop talking about Grandma's adventures. Tears blurred my vision as I held the card close. They had remembered. Even in my absence, my presence had been felt. Even when I had been pushed aside, my family had noticed. And in that acknowledgement, I felt something profound. Love, even when delayed, still matters. When Adam and Claire arrived a few days later, the house came alive once more. Laughter echoed in the hallways, the scent of roasted turkey and cinnamon rolls filled the kitchen, and the soft clinking of glasses marked a reunion that was long overdue. I watched as Hannah and the younger children ran to show me gifts and projects, chattering excitedly about my travels, their words spilling over with the joy of stories retold. Claire pulled me aside, her eyes glistening, voice trembling slightly. "I shouldn't have left you out, Margaret. I thought I was making things easier. But I hurt you. I'm sorry." I touched her hand gently, smiling softly. "Families stumble, dear. What matters is that we stand again. Together." Adam walked over, holding a photograph from my trip. He looked at me, a mixture of curiosity, admiration, and something quieter, respect. "So, who's this man everyone online's asking about?" I laughed softly, the kind of laugh that carries relief, joy, and a quiet triumph. "A friend. A good one," Hannah leaned in, whispering. "He looks like someone special." I looked at the photograph again, at the light in my own eyes reflected back at me, and whispered quietly, "He is." Over the next few days, the house became a symphony of warmth and connection. We shared stories, played games, decorated the tree together, and laughed until our sides ached. I noticed small changes in Adam and Claire, a subtle attentiveness, a newfound appreciation for the life I had quietly lived on my own terms. And I realized, with a gentle clarity, that the greatest gift I had given them, and myself, was the reminder that happiness is not borrowed, it is chosen. One evening, as the children slept and the snow fell softly outside, I stood by the window, looking out at the quiet streets of my neighborhood. The house was silent, peaceful, yet alive with memories and warmth. For so many years, I had allowed my own light to be dimmed, placing the needs of others above my own. But now I understood something fundamental. Home isn't four walls, or a dinner invitation, or even family approval. Home is a state of being. It is peace. It is joy. It is the quiet certainty that you are enough, exactly as you are. I whispered into the soft night. This year, I didn't just celebrate Christmas. I celebrated myself. And for the first time in decades, the silence of my home felt full, not empty. Alive, not abandoned. In the following weeks, small moments of connection deepened the bonds within my family. Hannah ran to tell me about her school projects. Adam shared a quiet story about work, and Claire brought me a mug of hot cocoa each evening, a silent gesture of reconciliation. I noticed the subtle changes in the way they spoke, the warmth in their eyes, The way they included me not out of obligation, but because they wanted to. Jonathan and I kept in touch. Our friendship a gentle reminder of the joy we had discovered together. We shared photographs, stories, and occasional calls. The kind of connection that doesn't demand, but nourishes. And I realized that life had opened a door, one that I had walked through bravely, reclaiming the vibrancy I had almost forgotten. By the time the new year arrived, the house was fully alive with laughter, warmth, and the quiet understanding that happiness is not something that waits for permission. It is something we create. And in that creation, we inspire others to see us, to respect us, to remember us not because they must, but because they can. That Christmas and every day thereafter, I carried a quiet certainty in my heart, the power of choice, the strength of independence, and the beauty of being fully seen. And in this realization, I found the truest gift of all, the knowledge that my life, my joy, and my peace were mine to embrace, now and always. The following year arrived quietly, the first snowfall of the season settling like a soft white blanket over the pale blue cottage on the edge of Denver. The air was crisp, filled with the scent of pine and wood smoke, a gentle reminder that time had passed and life had continued to unfold in unexpected, beautiful ways. I stood by the window, watching the snow drift lazily to the ground, my hands wrapped around a warm mug of tea. This time, when Adam and Claire arrived with the children, the house felt different. Not because it had changed, but because I had. I walked through the door, greeting them with a smile that held years of experience, of lessons learned, of joy reclaimed. The children ran to me, their laughter filling the hallways, their energy a vivid reminder that life continues, that happiness can always be rediscovered. Even Hannah's mother was present, her face soft and gracious, the same woman who had once unknowingly taken my place at the Christmas table. There were no awkward silences or unspoken resentments, only the warm, quiet acknowledgement that we had all grown, that the past had been reconciled with the present. As we gathered in the living room, the smell of roasted turkey and fresh bread mingled with the scent of the tree, lights blinking softly around us. I watched Adam raise a glass, his eyes glistening with a mixture of pride and gratitude. "To Mom," he said, voice steady, "for reminding us that happiness isn't something you wait for. It's something you choose." Tears welled in my eyes as I took in the scene, my family together, smiling, warm, and alive. For so long I had waited for recognition, for a place in their world, for the acknowledgement that I mattered. But now I understood something profound. True respect and love do not come from being invited to sit at a table, but from the quiet strength of living fully, courageously, unapologetically. The afternoon unfolded in a gentle rhythm. Children playing, adults chatting quietly, the kind of comfortable laughter that comes from mutual understanding and shared history. Claire pulled me aside, eyes misty, voice soft. "Margaret, I want you to know I understand now. I see you. I see everything you've done, everything you've given. I'm sorry for making you feel small." I reached out, taking her hands in mine. "Families stumble, dear," I said gently. "What matters is that we stand again, together." Evenings were quieter, more reflective. After the children had gone to bed, I walked through the house slowly, taking in the small changes. A new ornament on the tree, a handmade card from Hannah, the subtle arrangement of furniture that reflected their thoughtfulness. I realized then that happiness is not loud or demanding. It does not require justification. It is quiet, steady, and profound. The kind that grows within you and spreads outward, touching others in ways both seen and unseen. Jonathan remained a part of my life. Our friendship a gentle current of support and joy. We exchanged letters, photographs, and stories, each interaction a reminder that connection does not require constant presence, but rather understanding and respect. And I realized that life had opened a door, one I had walked through with courage, reclaiming my joy, my independence, and my voice. Over the next weeks, the rhythm of daily life returned, but with a subtle shift. I moved through my days with a quiet confidence, choosing experiences that nurtured my spirit, spending time with my grandchildren, sharing stories, and allowing myself the freedom to explore new passions and hobbies. The house, once silent and heavy with absence, now thrummed with warmth, laughter, and the gentle glow of shared understanding. On a quiet evening, as snow drifted softly outside the window, I reflected on the year that had passed. The journey I had taken, to foreign streets, to distant cities, to the heart of my own desires, had transformed me in ways I could not have anticipated. I had learned that happiness is not granted by others. It is claimed, nurtured, and celebrated within oneself. And as I looked at the faces of my family, present and radiant, I understood something essential. Love is not only in presence or in gifts or in words spoken. It is in respect, in recognition, in the understanding that each person must find their own joy before it can be shared fully. That night, after everyone had left, I stood by the window once more, watching the snow fall in gentle spirals, the world hushed and serene. I felt a quiet satisfaction, a deep peace that comes not from validation, but from the knowledge that I had lived bravely, chosen joy, and reclaimed my voice. Last year, I had been told to stay home. This year, I had not only celebrated Christmas, I had celebrated myself. I whispered into the quiet of the winter night, letting the words carry into the stillness. Home is not a place, it is a feeling. It is peace, it is joy. It is knowing that I am enough. And for the first time in decades, I understood that the true gift of life is the courage to embrace it fully, to step forward with love, resilience, and the quiet certainty that happiness is something you create, within yourself, and in the lives of those who choose to walk alongside you. When life tells you to stay home, go anyway. Sometimes the journey you take alone becomes the one that saves you, teaches you, and reminds you who you truly are. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who has ever felt left behind, overlooked, or underestimated. Because we all deserve to be seen, to be valued, and to celebrate ourselves. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share. And don't forget to subscribe so we can continue sharing journeys of courage, healing, and quiet triumph together.